you've got more here on what's planned for us in UK.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I referred earlier to what Keir Starmer said about using existing police powers, and we constantly hear the phrase, people are going to face the full force of the law. Now, what exactly does that mean? Who's saying it? And is there really any weight to it? So we'll just have a quick look at a tweet sent out by Diana Johnson. Here we go, retweeting the Home Office, prison sentences for rioting, violent disorder, inciting racial hatred and criminal damage. Now, this might seem a little bit petty, but since so much government business in the field of communications is put onto Twitter, I think looking at her Twitter profile bears a certain amount of scrutiny. She's got there in her bio the Ukrainian flag, a rainbow, which I'm fairly sure means something other than she just likes rainbows. But she goes on, as well as saying that she's the policing minister, she likes Yorkshire tea, cake, crime novels, black Labradors and the colour red. So are we really to take such a person seriously? Now, another Twitter engagement from, this is Heidi Alexander, the Justice Minister, saying that all elements of the criminal justice system stand ready. But again, do they really? Because, of course, the prison service have been reporting for some time that they are effectively completely overwhelmed. And we talked about measures to try and ease this, letting out prisoners. We've just heard reference actually by Nigel Farage of former RAF Wethersfield, and this is the site which is currently used for asylum seekers. So we'll just have a quick look at this. The special development order that enabled the Home Office to be able to change the use from MOD property to Home Office property, but just to draw your attention to the fact that some of the documents have not been produced for security reasons, so we'll have to work off what has been. And we've got a fact sheet here. Why do we need large sites? And note the use of the passive tense. The number of people arriving in the UK who require accommodation has reached record levels and has put our asylum system under incredible strain, as though the Home Office could have absolutely no way in which to affect such strain or record levels. Also, I point out that it's costing £8 million a day. We go on to a little bit of site background. And again, interesting in the light of the current climate with defence, that it's surplus to defence requirements, telling, of course, in itself. And then why are they using the site? Well, at the moment, to support asylum seekers who would otherwise be destitute. So interesting, again, to highlight the discrepancy that the Home Office has a duty, apparently, to prevent asylum seekers becoming destitute, but not necessarily native British people who are at risk of homelessness. So that's sort of one side of it. But the main point here is that the speed with which the Home Office was able to requisition the area in order to repurpose it for asylum seekers is why the Telegraph article suggests that it could actually be used as a detention centre, or indeed other properties that are becoming available as part of the defence estate or elsewhere. Now, other measures that they have at their disposal leads us into what I'm going to refer to as pre-crime. I spoke last week about the serious violence reduction order here to do with knife crime, and effectively the situation is such. Based on previous criminal activity or indeed involvement with people who have undertaken criminal activity in relation to knife crime, you may have imposed upon you an order, which means that you are either forbidden from doing things or mandated to do certain things, and it means you can be searched without suspicion. Now, this is one of a raft of powers that police have at their disposal. They're not new powers, as the Prime Minister says. He wants to continue to use existing powers, but of course it's very easy to forget, just because legislation hasn't yet necessarily had much use, that it isn't there lurking in the background. So this is just a selection: serious disruption prevention orders, the violent offender order, criminal behaviour orders, and serious crime prevention orders. Now, unfortunately, there's not enough time to go into exactly what form these all take. But as I say, the point of calling it pre-crime is that what they're doing is, rather than where a custodial sentence would effectively wipe the slate clean because the debt to society has been paid, these are talking about actions in which we're imagining that somebody is going to do something, carry out a future action based on their past behaviour. The other thing I should refer to, because we've concentrated on his case for the great part of the earlier bit of this year, is that of the political prisoner Sam Melia, who is in HMP Hull. And it's worth saying that I had a conversation with his wife Laura yesterday, and to talk about the manipulation of statistics, yes, indeed, there may be space in the prisons, but from HMP Hull, 16 people were taken in recently as a result of violent disorder, which meant 6 people being released due to the governor's discretion. Sam, of course, himself being a political prisoner, again, there at the governor's discretion, is not going to be released. So again, very interesting to note that discrepancy. But in terms of other measures, the other person I'd like to bring in now is Lord Walney, who you'll consider in your mind, because I've spoken about him a lot. He's advising the government on countering extremism, and this is what he said to Times Radio recently about how to deal with violent disorder.
I think the British public will back further action from ministers in this emergency to get things under control. I think we should cast our mind back to the days of the days of COVID, where actually the public accepted an emergency situation during COVID and were prepared to back and lawmakers were prepared to support the kind of temporary measures to ensure that basically rioters were not able to claim forgive me, back in COVID they were prepared to back measures that were needed in that situation. I think they would take a similar approach to keeping rioters off the streets now, given the scale of damage which is being done to communities.
Now, no wonder he was stumbling over his words there. So he is in effect bringing to mind this notion that under an emergency, anything may be done. And that is quite the prospect. But also the other thing to consider with him is how impartial he may be regarded as being, particularly given the ethnic tensions that sort of underlie some of the violence in the UK at the moment. So I'll just show you his sort of profile from the Pinsker Centre, which organises trips for Oxbridge students out to the Middle East. And of course, they highlight the fact that during his time as an MP, Lord Walney served as the chair of the Labour Friends of Israel. So certainly not without bias. And also, I have to ask the question, is he now considered an extremist? This is the new definition which he's had some part in shaping. And the government tells us that it's an ideology that aims to negate or destroy the fundamental rights and freedoms of others, and here he is suggesting lockdown again, or to undermine, overturn or replace the UK's system of liberal parliamentary democracy and democratic rights, or intentionally create a permissive environment for others to achieve the results in one. So he is effectively setting the ball rolling, which is exactly what we saw during the period of COVID internment, when an idea was floated out there. It was deemed to be completely off the charts and that nobody would go for it. And then, of course, they did. And look what happened. So it'd be very interesting to see how this particularly develops over the next few weeks.
More dictatorial powers.
Absolutely.